will the consumer ultimately have a choice in all of this, knowing who to patronize? Now we're talking about patronage here now, because once when the telecoms came, it was a flat rate, and irrespective of what network you were on, for a second you paid 15 naira until, well, someone had to break that monopoly. With the discos, are we likely to have that kind of opportunity? I say I'm not going to patronize Amadi's company. I'll prefer Marquez' company because the charges given to me and the service is better than your own company.
Absolutely. The ultimate end state we're looking for is what we call choice. We are not at quality, no choice. Every disco is a monopoly. But the Act says that NEC can, in the future, unbundle distribution. So you have retail and distribution, like what happened elsewhere in England. So what that means is that a co-distribution company will be just the owner of the network where power goes through. Mokwe and Co can be the retailer. So it comes to you and say, you know what, I give you power at 12 naira. I can come and say, you know what, I give you power at less price. Now people will be choosing based on service delivery. Maybe when you align something good, they call Mokwe, the retailer. She responds very well. She sends information. She says, you know what, I want to migrate. So that's
how do they do that? Individual flats can migrate like that?
That's when we unbundle now. That means we're saying, hey, your job is distribution. These companies can now register as retailers. So they pay ECO for the cost of distribution, and then go to you and say, we will sell you power. They now be competing on their own nuances. What are they provided? Prices can go down. They can take smaller margin profit in order to sell you power. You can just migrate because I don't like the way they talk to me. So we are moving towards choice. We are not yet at choice. We are now at the level of regulating a monopoly. So distribution is private monopoly now. Private companies who hold a monopoly. So the only way we can incentivize quality service is to effectively enforce their performance until we get choice.
Let's talk about, the privatization itself. I mean, today we all know that the new owners are taking over fully. There are also concerns about those people who finally got, the companies. A host of people are saying that they don't have the confidence that NERC will be fair to them, because right now they're saying that they're already owing their banks because of the delay in terms of exactly, in terms of handover. They're incurring costs, and they're looking at recouping their monies, and it will seem that the way NERC is handling things, they might not be able to recoup their money, and as such they might not be able to make the investments that they ought to make, which in turn would also make consumers more anxious in terms of the success of this entire privatization plan. Sure. Yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, I think the key things are the new owners want one outcome. They want recovery of their costs, and that requires two things. Either make sure that the market framework is good, that's one. Two, make sure that the price is good. So some of them have been talking about price increase. Look, and that is based on what they call losses. The losses we projected in the MITO, they said it's not very accurate. We say, fine, we didn't create it. It was a loss report. Now we had a meeting with them. We said, okay, each of you go and do your own loss study. Come and get validation. Now, what is happening now, we're having a meeting with them. When they study losses means, for example, if you say there were 5,000 connected customers in the Ikeja, and you discover it's only 400 for 4,000, that's a problem. If you say that the trigger losses in the Ikeja is 20%, and you discover it is 30, that means you are going to incur more losses. So what we have done is that we say, go and hire an expert, let them study these losses, give us report, we validate it. We've already given them a template of a term of reference. So working well with them. Now ultimately, when the losses report come and is validated, we will now talk about if there is a gap significant, it will lead to tariff review. That's the point. So what they're getting to is to say, the losses you are projected is lower than what we are being told now. World Bank, blah, blah, blah. We say, we don't rely on World Bank, we rely on verified reports. Go and do the research and come back. And they have agreed. So really, and now they've also come back and said, look, the full rigor of contract may not happen in this interim period. Why don't you give us a draft interim rule that tell us how do we settle ourselves, settlement. All this has nothing to do with the customer. It has to do with how would a director settle a distributor. When money come, which are the priority payments we should make, because we may not get all the money that we need to settle all the liabilities. So we work with them on a draft interim rule, which the Commission approved last Thursday, provincially or provisionally, saying give it back to them, give them 3 days to review and send back to us. So we have worked very well with the new owners, and we have the same commitment. As a regulator, our commitment is to allow them to recover their money. But beyond that, we also want the consumers to be protected. So
and that's number one.
So the problem is that when these results come out and we discover that their losses are higher, we have to make them good. It will require some consultation with everybody to have a new tariff. It may be a lower tariff, maybe a higher tariff.
We also understand that the new owners are also looking for investors. A host of people already thought that the new owners themselves were the investors. Yeah. How is that working out?
Well, they're not looking for, probably they're looking for financiers. You see, the new owners are the investors, you're right. But they borrowed money, okay? And they're going to borrow more money. The whole idea of this privatization is not to come and bid for a price and pay money and take away. No. The reason why government did this distribution privatization is to get people who have the capacity to raise finance, first for acquisition, which they have done, second for financing loss reduction. So let's not take it from anybody who says we have spent so much money. Yes, we've spent money to buy the asset, but you are required to spend money to improve the asset. So what they're looking for are more financiers to help them raise funds. They can't be looking for investors, except they want to now dilute their ownership. You know,
can you also confirm to us that the federal government sold most of its assets at a loss?
That's I don't think it's a loss. You see what happened? You see, there's a regulated price. If you buy this Samsung for 20,000 or 100,000 naira, okay? And it's a regulated asset, that means asset used to serve customers. Two things happen. When we want to resell it, we're going to look at what is the depreciated value. That's one. Two, how much do you want customers to pay for this? Because we're looking at the value, because it will affect tariff. So NEC did a scientific valuation of the asset. We use optimized depreciated optimized process, which means you first get the asset investigated. Since this is the price of this asset, we now depreciate over the years spent. The asset has been used. We now look at it at its conditioning. We optimize it, and then we come to a value. That was done by a leading British firm, leading some Nigerian firms, PT4 of Britain. So
if I understand you correctly, you're still saying that there was still some subsidy, you know, imbued in the sale of the power assets.
Yes, you can't sell on the book value. If, for example, Nigeria, somebody says the budget, we bought this thing for 20 million, and the real value is, book value across the world is 80 million. We discount it too. That's one. You use it for the past 8 years. Because we look at it every year. It's supposed to be 20 years asset, because most of the assets are 20 years lifespan. So we depreciate it across 20 years, and maybe it is in the last 5 years of it. That becomes the value. We don't look at the condition. Maybe it's a transformer. It's leaking oil because of poor maintenance culture. Our expert look at it and say, no, even though it's now remaining only 5% of its lifespan, it still was badly maintained, and therefore the real value of it should be minus 1% again. So at the end of the day, it was assessed not by looking at how much you bought it. We looked at it at what's the lifespan spent, what's the depreciation, and we optimize it according to its condition. And ultimately, the asset valuation will affect the tariff that consumers pay. So it was strategic to make it reasonable and not exorbitant.
Right. There's so much question, complaint, operational issues that people have, but we clearly cannot take all of them because of times of, I don't know, somehow, since NERC is still the regulatory authorities, this complaints or questions will always be there for NERC to attend to. So we do hope that somehow you get across to them and, of course, address their challenges.
They should also go to our forum officers and lay these complaints, or write to us directly. We received several of them, and to tell the truth, some people write back and say they've never seen that is the first government agency that's responsive. This, for example, let me ask, how many times have you seen do you know how your tariffs are fixed for water, for telecom? This is the first time that tariff making is a public issue. People at least understand NEC wants to do tariff. So
we'll address them, direct them to your forum so that they can also get their response. I want to thank you for coming on. Dr. Sam Amadi is the chairman of Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.